Hello everyone, I am Vexy, and today I'm going to just be trying to debunk a few anti-trans arguments I see. First, credentials. So, because obviously that's like the most important part. One is I'm a closeted trans woman. I know multiple trans people. I just kind of know the trans spaces in general. I am currently studying biology in college, and that kind of it goes in with number three, where I'm like involved with science. Like I've always been good at doing proper research, and also like biology has just been one of the easiest classes for me. I've never really struggled with it. But with that out of the way, let's get right into argument number one. Gender is determined by chromosomes. This one is like one of the easily debunked because you got one which is Swyer syndrome, which is just it's a female born with XY chromosomes. They have a fully functioning vagina, uterus, fallopian tubes, pretty much just like fully functioning like sex things for females. But there's no sex glands of any kind, so no ovaries, testicles. So there's infertility. They can't produce eggs or sperm or any of that kind of thing. And then there's also usually no puberty unless they get HRT or hormonal replacement therapy. And then on the male side, we have XX males, which is a male born with XX chromosomes. He's got normal male genitalia, but they do get infertility because they have azoospermia, which is just like essentially like sperm that can't reproduce. And it's also they also kind of get like the delayed puberty, low testosterone, unless they get HRT. For argument number two, we have that biological sex is binary, which is just one, you instantly have intersex, and there's so many different ways intersex can be present, like over 40 different ways. And it's just like you can get like different combinations of sex chromosomes, like XXY, just one X. I'm pretty sure you get like four X's. Like you can get some crazy like different combinations. And then there's also like a thing where like one cell in them will have XX chromosomes, and then a different cell will have XY chromosomes, which is, I mean, honestly, really interesting. But yeah, like it's not like this just one or the other. And then they can have like different mixes of genitalia. There's a few where they would have both ovaries and testicles. And then the second point, this is that sex isn't binary. Like if it was fully binary, it's like the males would look like one thing, females would look like another, and like no difference. Like every male would be beard, high testosterone, like etc., muscles, whatever. And like every female would have ovaries, uterus, high estrogen, I don't know, like smooth skin, like no facial hair, like that, etc. Whatnot. So like it's just everyone has different combinations of features and different levels of hormones. And then next argument is that being trans is a mental illness, and let me tell you, being trans itself is not a mental illness, but there's definitely lots of mental illnesses that are a result of being trans. There's high rates of depression, anxiety, suicidality amongst trans people. One of the biggest part of this is transphobia and discrimination, which, I mean, I'm sure it's a huge surprise because obviously if you're not accepted, you don't feel safe in your environment and you feel like you're in the wrong. And then there's a study done that showed having strong parental support creates a 93% reduction in suicide attempts, which just shows like support is really the big thing. Like if you just support people, they do so much better. And then obviously gender dysphoria, one of the most common symptoms in trans people, is very easily linked to depression. For if it's unnatural is if you think things like species of animals that are naturally trans. There's so many fish species that swap between them. And there's even a few frog species that can swap. A specific fish, parrotfish, I found they actually change multiple times just throughout their lives, just whenever it's needed, really. And then oysters just like switch both through multiple seasons, and they reproduce like via the one they switched into for each season, so they get experience it all. And like trans-large HRT is really very natural compared to a lot of things we have. Because like HRT, that's just switching the balance of hormones. You already produce both, so like it's just kind of changing whether it's more estrogen or testosterone. And some people just naturally produce one more than the other while being like the opposite sex or whatever. And then like this, because it just results in trans people being able to just have the phenotype they want, like just so they can look how they want. And then like bottom surgery is usually like of using like previous genitalia to construct like the desired genitalia. Also, sometimes I think primarily for like trans men, they use like different parts of like the arm and the leg. So it's like pretty much only using things the body already produces or has. And like some things like chemotherapy isn't natural, our body doesn't naturally irradiate the cancer, or so like pretty much I'd be saying stop chemotherapy. And like acetaminophen, which I think is Tylenol, so it's like we don't naturally produce this, so we should stop using pretty much any pain relief. Or like it's just there's so many different like chemicals and medicines that just aren't natural. And then like saying argument 5 of saying a trans man or woman is not equal to cis man or woman is like, well, one, you can just get infertility in both, because like it's just like so many reasons why it just occurs naturally. So pretty much the trans people just joined those cis people in infertility. So like it's like there's really just not a huge difference there. And then like two, that trans people can have fully functioning genitalia, because like a vaginoplasty can create a functioning vagina and vulva out of the existing skin of a penis, which creates it almost identical, because like some females don't have uteruses, some don't have ovaries or anything, so trans women is just being same as that. Then there's a phalloplasty, which can create a functioning penis and testicle skin taken from different parts of the bodies. It can get erections, like it pretty much just makes you equal to an infertile old cis male. And then it goes against religion. First point is just kind of like a, if you believe in like a god and that like God created every animal, there's like all those naturally trans animals, you'd have to say every single one of those are satanic pretty much, or God created them. So like this, it's like something natural God created if that's what you believe in. And then like the texts of the major religions don't like ever really specifically condemn trans people, because like in Christianity, one specific thing is like Jesus is praising eunuchs, which were people who like assigned male at birth and then got reproductive organs removed, allowed to go between male and female spaces, but like they're like essentially praised in the Bible. So, and like the Bible never says like, oh, you have to be this thing or you have to be this thing. Islam, this one is the hardest one to kind of find stuff, because like, I mean, the text doesn't specifically say you can't like transition, but there's nothing really in it about it. But I did see that scholars at Egypt's Al-Azhar, which was like, I think I said it was considered like one of the highest like Islamic like study things, was that declared like gender reassignment surgery was acceptable under Islamic law. For Judaism, it recognized at least 6 different genders, and also like has some examples of characters such as like Dinah and Isaac, where so they, I can't fully remember, but they like transitioned so they could fit a role better or something like that. And then Hinduism is tells of a third sex, which is just anyone who can't procreate, which easily allows for trans people, since they can't procreate, to be accepted under this. And then if we're wondering why Buddhism on here, since that's also a major like religion, is it doesn't really have like a set text. It's just like more about personal enlightenment. So like anyone can fit under it. And then the argument 7 of it's a new thing is like actually just so wrong, because you have anyone who followed under the Sumerian deity of Inanna, which kind of like, and like it kind of blurred the line of the gender binary, because like Mesopotamia in general really like kind of accepting of trans people, I guess, because like, you know, they kind of blurred the line. They had a few gods that kind of switched. They had some like intersex stuff. Like Mesopotamia was like kind of progressive in that sense, at least. And then there's also the followers of the Phrygian goddess Cybele and her consort Attis, which in ancient Greece, like, which was in ancient Greece, and they had the priests that were called the Galli, who were transgender because they would, I think it was male to female. Also, they could, because I think Cybele herself was like male to female, so they pretty much were just following in her footsteps. And then you also have the two-spirit people in Native American culture, which was like someone who would be born a male, but they go out on a like a vision quest, and then like when they came back, they'd be a woman essentially. Like they take on the role and whatnot. And then for like specific people, there's Elagabalus, who I probably butchered that name, but it was a Roman empress who was a trans woman, and she offered half the empire to any soldier that could give her female genitalia. And if you see that and somehow say that that isn't a trans woman, I don't know what I'm looking at. Then there was also Colonimus ben Colonimus, who was a Jewish philosopher who wrote a poem called Becoming a Woman, which is pretty much just how they describe how their life would be much better if God had made them a woman. And like it really just perfectly encapsulates like gender dysphoria essentially. Like they're just really like, oh, I wish I had been born a woman so that like my life would be better, I'd be happier. Like it's really just like gender dysphoria. So yeah. And here's all my sources if you want to look at them. And thanks for listening. I don't know if I missed anything or if there's anything I should elaborate more on. Be free to tell me in the comments. Like, I'm willing to admit if I've made a mistake. And then also if there's any like other things I missed, like any big arguments I missed, feel free to leave in the comments. Might make a part 2 going over some more of those. And I mean, yeah, just thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you whenever I get around to recording another video.